Welcome to Agents Growth Academy. I am your headmaster, Jim Schubert. I hope you're ready to grow big or go home. If you recognize the face on my screen, that is in fact Mark Engels. He is the CEO of ePayPolicy. Very excited to have him on today. Let me tell you a little bit about Mark. Mark is the CEO of ePayPolicy, a modern payments platform built just for insurance carriers, brokers, and agencies. You may have heard them because I talk about them since they are a partner of this podcast. Appreciate that. Before ePay, Mark served as the Chief Revenue Officer for Hyperwallet, which was acquired by PayPal, and then Paya, where he led the sales and growth initiatives for both companies. Mark has seen the rapid digital transformation of payments firsthand, having spent most of his career leading teams in the space. Welcome to Agents Growth Academy. Mark, what's going on, man?
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate you having me. Doing well. Doing well. How about yourself?
I am doing far better than I deserve, sir. uh, we were talking off mic. What are you about to do this weekend for
Yeah,
the
I'm
long
gonna
holiday
road
weekend?
trip from Austin up to Oklahoma to visit some family and go to the OU Sooner opener at Memorial Stadium tomorrow. So I'm a season ticket holder, big Sooner fan. Looking forward to kicking off a new era under a new coach.
Awesome. I bet there are some other Sooner fans listening in right now. Somehow, my children, this is so far out of my comfort zone. My three children somehow convinced me to go to Dragon Con in downtown Atlanta this week. So, yes, we will be dressing up. Yes, I'm going to be super embarrassed, but you do whatever you have to do for your kids because you love them in theory, right?
That's right. That's right. Hey, we've all been there, but you got to do me a favor. Send me a photo.
Come on, man. What's the most embarrassing thing you've ever done with your kids?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. I have to think about that one.
Yeah,
There's
think
probably
on
some
that one.
fun.
We'll catch up on that one. All
Okay.
right. So when I asked if this were a master class, what would this episode be called? You said integrating check and digital payments for insurance. Now that's an interesting one because when I think of ePayPolicy, I just think about the digital piece. So tell me about the
Right.
integrating of checks.
Yeah, yeah. So, it's really interesting. You think back to when ePayPolicy was founded over 8 years ago, and the sole purpose that the founders had was to take checks out of the payments ecosystem as it related to insurance policies.
Yeah.
And so that is the core platform that you all know and love today. That everybody, on the podcast here that uses us has come to appreciate. The digital automation of receivables as it relates to policies.
Yeah.
Well, I've been here for 14 months now and have gotten
Congratulations.
out and talked to a lot of our customers. And the one thing I kept finding was a lot of them still received a lot of checks.
Yeah.
And when they get those checks, it's a very manual process to reconcile them into their back end management system.
Hmm.
And so we took a step back as a team and said, look, this is still a very big problem for our customers. People have been, by the way, not just in insurance, but across the economy, talking about the death of the check since I was in college.
Yeah.
And guess what? The check is still part of the way people choose to pay. And I, personally think that it's a losing strategy to force your customers into a payment method. You deliver a service to them and then allow them to pay you however they want.
Hmm.
And so, really, we thought it was our job as a service provider in this industry to make the acceptance of all payment types as simple as possible. And so, what we did is took a look at how we could leverage the integrations that we've got into, the majority of the AMS systems that are out there today, to leverage those integrations and take the checks and be able to use some software that we built to automate the reconciliation of those checks into the back office, just like we do for digital payments today.
Wow.
So that's what Checkmate is all about. Whether you've got your own lockbox provider and you want to just send us a file that will run through our machine learning algorithm, or you want to outsource the whole thing to us and just have checks sent to PO boxes that we've got set up all over the country, and we'll handle the processing of the physical check and then the uploading of that file and the auto reconciliation to the back end. It's really the next evolution of the platform to take what we found to be 80% of the payments going through our agents that were paper and being able to help them digitize that as well.
Wow. So first of all, incredibly thoughtful. I love the way that you say that you're solving a problem that agents still have. I mean, you've already solved a huge problem for me and a lot of other agents in terms of being able to collect our receivables a whole lot faster. We literally went from an average of 5 to 7 business days to less than 24 hours of being able to collect
That's
premium
great.
because of you guys. So thank you very much. But how thoughtful of you to think about the other things that we still have to deal with. Was that as a result of agents coming to you guys and saying that that was something that was still bugging them? Or how did you figure that out, that that was still an issue?
Yeah. So, it was a combination of things. One of the things obviously that we try and do in our business is drive the adoption of digital payments because we know the benefits that it drives, not just for our customers, but for the insureds,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I find it a lot easier to make a payment online than I do to write a check.
Yes.
Um, so there are a lot of things we do to promote the online platform, but that said, in talking to our customers, it's still only 20% of the total payments that they receive across the ePay portfolio of customers today. So we just
Really?
said, look, we're going to continue to try and drive adoption, but in the interim, let's help them solve this very big problem for the vast majority of the payments that they still receive.
Yeah. I have to imagine that during the pandemic, this was something that really came to the forefront. I know that was like, you probably came, it sounds like you came in like right in the middle of all this.
I
And I have
did.
to imagine that that was also a big driving force because I remember literally I was trying to pay a vendor that I normally drop a check off. It was one of the only vendors that I would still do that for. And they said, sorry, because of the pandemic, you can't come up here and do that. You can go online, but there was a huge fee to pay it online. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like caught in between a rock and a hard place here.
Right, right. Yeah, it's interesting. You're absolutely right. I mean, the pandemic sort of heightened this problem for them.
Yeah.
People were still mailing checks to the office, or folks would drop them by, and there was nobody there to collect them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Some of our customers have multiple locations spread out across multiple states.
Yep.
Some places were getting the checks into an office, others were having it sent to a central location. Those that got it in the office had to overnight it to the central location, right? Like just a logistical nightmare without COVID and everybody working from home.
Yeah.
And then when you
Yeah.
compound that with the pandemic, it just made it, an untenable situation. So
Yeah.
this is just us helping to solve that problem.
I love it. I love a good problem solver. I'm curious. You mentioned lock boxes, and I think I have an understanding of how that works in this process. But
Sure.
there may be some people who are listening still scratching their heads, going, "Tell me about that." Never used a lockbox before when it comes to checks.
Yeah, sure. Great question. So, really, a lockbox is just a central physical location that they would have a PO box where the checks would get sent, and then we have a provider on the back end that collects those checks on their behalf, runs it through a scanning tool, and uploads a file to us. So it's simply a centralized location for all of their checks to be sent to. And we've got 4 locations throughout the U.S. to cut down on the mail time to
Oh
make
wow.
sure that we're processing those payments as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, just think of it as another physical place to send checks where they don't have to touch them.
That's awesome. And the client doesn't care where the address is really. If they really want to send a check, it doesn't matter if it has a PO box, if it's in a different state, I presume.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but when I do actually have to physically write a check these days, still, like I don't really look at the remittance address,
No,
right? I just
true.
assume that it's correct, and with the advice that I got in the mail and drop it
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. When I first asked you, how this came about, I was fully expecting you to say that you were in line at the grocery store behind an old lady that was writing a check and taking forever. But
Yeah,
sounds like it
no,
was
no,
actual meaningful feedback from agents.
it was absolutely
Yeah.
100% customer driven.
Well, that is to be commended. I think that, like the fact that any vendor that we would use that actually listens to the problems that we still face and then does something about it, mad kudos to you guys because that's how you get ahead. So from
Appreciate
us to
it.
you, thank you for that. We actually don't have, it's funny because you're saying 80% of what's coming into most of your clients is still in the form of checks.
That's right.
And I think we're on the other end of that. And I think we made a really, really hard pivot during the pandemic to get as much being sent to us in a digital format as possible. And I guess I don't know what it is. I'm not bragging. We had really, really high adoption from our agents on ePayPolicy, which was awesome. And we've whittled it down to hardly getting any checks. But I can see that this is a huge, huge benefit for a lot of agencies who are still receiving those physical checks.
Yeah, yeah,
The,
absolutely. And particularly like as you sort of go upstream in the ecosystem as well, and it's a lot of B2B
yeah,
payments. Some of the treasury management functions within the insureds still want to send checks because
yeah,
of various internal control issues that they might have.
yeah. That makes a lot of sense. There's a couple of things I'm curious about. You had me at machine learning algorithm.
Yeah,
What in the
yeah,
world
yeah.
does that have to do with checks?
Yeah, so basically, to put this in more layman's terms, essentially what we did is wrote a piece of software where when we upload these check and remittance files that we get from our customers through the
Yeah.
lockbox service, it learns how to scan the document to find the data elements we need to
Okay.
reconcile back into the management system. So, as you could imagine, the remittance advices we get from our customers come in many different forms and flavors,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the policy number is not on the exact same spot on the form every time.
Okay.
So, the software is built to learn that when it sees a remittance advice from customer X, it knows to go look in the upper left hand corner of the digital file to find the related data element we need to do the reconciliation. So
Yeah.
that's how it teaches itself and it learns as it starts to see all of these different form factors that come in.
Wow. And I mean, can you or the people who are looking at that stuff actually see that it's becoming more efficient over time?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, part of building the product was training it. And so we got
Wow.
sample files from several customers and spent multiple weeks just training the algorithm to figure out how to continue to grow and find the related data elements.
Wow. I think we're going to name this episode How to Train Your Robot or How to Train Your Algorithm. I don't know.
There
That
you
is
go. There you go.
that's pretty fascinating, man. So you grew up in Northern California, so
I
you're
did.
no stranger, I presume, to technology and all that she gives us in her many forms, both good and bad.
That's
What
right.
makes you? What do you feel like makes you uniquely qualified to 14 months ago have jumped over to ePay policy and do what you're doing now?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. I would actually say that, this evolution for me started about 20 years ago when I got into payments.
Hmm.
Um, I was working for another technology company here in town that wasn't doing great at the time, and this is just one of those situations where better to be lucky than good. The gentleman I was working for had a mutual connection here in Austin at
Yeah.
this small startup payments business, and I went and talked to the guy that was running that company, and there was a great opportunity for me there, and I got into payments. And after I had been in the industry for about a year, I said, this is a technology that I can really wrap my arms around because I make payments every day,
Sure.
right? Whether it's as a consumer or in the business.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think I can help apply some logic and understanding to like how we can make this better as
Yeah.
time goes on. And certainly, this was back in the early 2000s. You could sort of see this wave coming of, all right, payments are going to start to go digital. Folks are going to want to leverage this to make things more efficient in their business. And
Mm.
I wanted to be a part of it. And so it's been an incredible, 20 plus years of being in and out of some really amazing businesses. And the thing that I love about the insurance industry and our focus as a company is, I think insurance as a whole, as it relates to digital payments, is still a fair ways behind the rest of the economy.
Yeah.
And so, it's great for us to be able to take learnings that we've had in prior B2B payments companies and help develop solutions that we've seen work in other industries and then deliver them to the insurance space. And obviously with validation from our customers that it's things that they need. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And look, it's been a great 14 months, and I'm looking forward to the next 14 years.
And I was looking back at just listening to what you're saying, looking back at your bio, um, you were at Hyperwallet, which was acquired by PayPal. How did that feel?
Yeah. Yeah, look, that was, I think certainly a moment of excitement for all of us, and that we had built something that was special enough for PayPal to consider spending a considerable amount of money on.
Yeah.
It's actually really interesting. Some of the guys that I worked with in that business are still at PayPal, and it is now the global cross-border remittance engine for all marketplaces at PayPal. And I want to say that business is moving upwards of $500 billion a year in volume now, which is just incredible.
Nice. I mean, I did
Yeah,
that wrong. Yeah. There you
yeah,
go. For those not watching, I was giving him props. That's awesome. And Paya, am I saying that right? I presume it's not Paya like papaya.
yeah, yeah. No, it actually it is Paya.
Oh no, are you
But
serious? I
yeah,
butchered
yeah,
it.
no, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, yeah. So Paya is a really interesting business, vertically integrated payments company that focuses on software integrations across multiple B2B verticals.
Yeah.
And so that business is doing really well. Was part of the team that took it public through a SPAC back in October of 20, which is a really interesting experience. Going through that entire process when everybody's at home during the pandemic.
Jeez.
But still an
But you did
incredible
it.
team in place there at Paya. Yeah, and still rooting for them from the sidelines.
Yeah. That's awesome. Um, what kind of industry trends are you seeing on the horizon right now that may affect either insurance agents or even the payments processing realm?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that I've certainly noticed. One, I think folks are taking a fairly holistic look at the digital journey that they're on, particularly as it relates to how they interact with their insured.
Yeah.
And actually, the one piece of advice I would give to all of the listeners is if you're not thinking about that yet, you should be.
Yeah.
Obviously, payments plays a role in that, but there's a broader set of topics that they should be taking a look at as it relates to that digital engagement with the insured. So I do see that starting to accelerate, and I think the pandemic had a lot to do with that. And as it relates to payments specifically, I think there's starting to be a push towards certainly something we're focused on in our business, helping our customers not only from an AR perspective, but also an AP perspective as it
Mm,
relates to digitizing those workflows and the associated payments. So I
yeah.
think you'll see a lot more from our business here over the next, call it 6 to 12 months on the AP side as well, as we
Awesome.
help take some of that pain out of the process.
Yeah.
And then the last piece is also just around speed.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things going on, at the Fed level as it relates to real-time payments. And there are actually a couple of competing platforms out there. Some of the biggest banks got together and built their own real-time payment network because the Fed wasn't moving fast enough for them, but it never really got the critical mass it needed. Now the Fed built their own platform, and it's going to be launching early next year. So it's certainly something we've got our eye on here,
Mm.
to make sure that we can deliver the fastest payment methods on behalf of our customers.
So what I'm hearing is that time to be able to get money from one place to another is potentially going to be reduced to a really appropriate level.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, particularly you think about a use case in insurance, right? When the policy binds or the payments received, I
Yeah.
mean, real-time payments would be pretty slick. So,
Yeah. Kind of
so
important.
certainly something we want to make sure, we don't like to be the earliest adopter. We
Well,
want to make sure that the Fed has things worked out. I mean, we are talking about a government agency here,
yeah.
but,
Yeah.
it's certainly something we've got our eye on.
I'm curious, was what they we're reacting against built on blockchain technology by chance?
It was not.
Okay. I just
Yeah.
every time I hear about things being made faster, somebody inevitably says the word blockchain.
Blockchain. Yeah. 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 It's one of the buzzwords right now.
Yeah, I know, right? Thanks for that. That was good. I'm glad to hear that there are some things coming down the pike potentially that are going to really continue to help agents out. What's your biggest surprise as CEO in your first 14 months?
Biggest surprise. That's an
I know I
interesting
didn't
question.
prep you for that, so now.
Yeah. 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 I would say I anticipated that this would be a really rewarding experience, being able to work with such a talented group of people in
Yeah,
an industry where there's a real need. I don't think I had an appreciation for how invigorating it really would be. I think that has been a really pleasant surprise for me. Fully anticipated that I would love the job,
yeah,
but maybe not to the level that I am enjoying just going to work with this group every single day. And really like just getting to know the folks in the industry. I've had the fortune to have customers across some really cool industries.
yeah.
Some of the biggest travel brokers that everybody on this podcast knows was a customer of mine at Hyperwallet, and the biggest marketplace on the planet was a customer of mine. So like I've dealt with some really cool businesses, but being able to go out and meet with our customers and just really understand just at its core just how great the folks in the insurance industry are has just been such a fun element of my job.
Well, welcome to the industry. I know you're 14 months in already, but what you just described, Mark, is I think exactly why so many agents love doing what they do, because they are getting to meet on a human level with their customers and
Yeah.
and prospects and see, what problems they have that they can solve. You've talked a lot about that already on
Yeah.
this episode, and so it makes sense that's if that's something that gets you out of bed in the morning. That's very inherent in this industry. We are very much. It's why I left being a high school English teacher to come and do this, because my father asked me, and at first I was like, "Oh hell no, I don't want to do that."
Yeah.
And then he went on to explain that it's actually a much more people oriented business than you might imagine. And the
Yeah.
story he told me really just sold me. So yeah, glad you said that. That's I think a lot of people feel the same way about the industry in general. Awesome. Are you ready for the rapid fire round, my friend?
Sure. Let's go for it.
All right. This is going to be okay. You can't say ePayPolicy. What's one piece of technology or software you can't live without?
Oh, you probably get this one a lot, but I mean, it's got to be my phone, right?
What
And
is
I
there a
would say
specific app or two?
all right, yeah, a couple of things. One, the communication devices. So, being able to stay in touch with the team real time, regardless of where I'm at, whether it's through Slack or
Yeah.
email or text. Um, Obviously, that's hugely beneficial. And then on the personal side, your music apps, Spotify, my own
Nice.
library. I got to have music while I'm working out. So,
Heck yeah.
uh, got to have it.
What kind of music, if you don't mind me asking?
Boy, it's a wide variety. So
Yeah.
if you saw one of my favorite playlists, you'd see some U2 on there, some Pearl Jam, even some
Dude, you
old
were
school
speaking
Beastie
my
Boys.
language. Oh
Yeah,
yeah. All right.
yeah, yeah.
You and
So
I are instant friends.
all right, there we
my
go. There we
my
go.
my kids and I went on Tuesday of this week. We're recording this on Friday, and we went Tuesday. We weren't sure if this was a good idea, but we ended up only taking the teenagers and not the 10-year-old to see Imagine Dragons. And I
Oh,
have to tell
cool.
you, man, they were absolutely phenomenal. It sounded just like the album. And not only that, the lead singer took some really good time to like talk to the audience, tell stories, but stories
Very
that were
cool.
uplifting and meaningful. I was like, I'm going to take my kids to more concerts if we're going to have people that are good influences like this. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Hey, not
that's,
to hijack your rapid fire round. What was the first concert you ever went to?
oh my gosh. So it was at the same venue. It was an amphitheater. First concert I ever went to was the Nelson Twins, and
Oh,
they were
wow.
they were opened by Milli Vanilli, who we
Oh,
now
man.
know,
Oh, wow.
infamous for
Millie
lip
Vanilli.
syncing. How about you?
Okay. I saw OMD at Freeborn Hall at UC Davis, where I went to undergrad. So,
Nice. That's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I thought I was going to redeem myself after that one, but my second concert was Vanilla Ice.
I actually saw him in concert on 6th Street here in Austin when I was in grad
Did you
school. Believe it or
really?
not. Yeah, yeah,
That's awesome, man. No, I love it. Hijack away.
yeah.
What's one book you're reading right now, or one that you've read recently that you want to share with folks?
Yeah, I read Super Pumped recently about the founding of Uber,
Ooh,
and it is a fascinating story on multiple levels. So, anybody listening, if you haven't picked it up, um, it's a great read. In fact, Showtime made a series about it with oh gosh, who's the guy that plays the lead? Levitt, Josh Gordon Levitt, or something like that, I think is
okay,
the
okay.
actor's name.
I'll
He
believe it.
plays the founder of Uber. But
Wow,
yeah, read it. Great story. Some great lessons to be learned
that's
from
awesome.
that.
It's so apropos. I'm writing a book right now on the power of storytelling in business, and I used Uber
Wow.
as an example to explain how to demonstrate things through your storytelling so that people see it and visualize it. And I was using the example of like if I, you know, if you didn't know what Uber was, but I explain, what a taxi is, and then I kind of
Yeah.
use that to demonstrate what Uber is. That's how
There you
you
go.
get people to go from one place to another. That's
Right.
interesting. Super
Yeah.
pumped. Okay. Love it. What's one piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
Yeah. This is a good one. I would tell my younger self that hustle, grit, and perseverance will take you a really long way in your career.
Ooh, break that down for me a little. Unpack that.
Yeah, so like as I look back over the journey that I've had, as everybody in their career, right? Like things don't always go great. There's
Yeah.
always tough times, and if you're willing to just grind it out and stick with it, and not always look for the grass is greener solution, I
Yeah.
think you come out the backside with great lessons learned. You come out stronger. You come out as a better leader.
Mm,
And in my experience, anyway, I've come out with just some terrific outcomes. And so I think just having the ability to stay patient and grind it out can take you a
yeah.
really long way.
Yeah. Absolutely. And sometimes those things, I know I have a tendency to like just focus like way too much on one thing and think I'm going to get it done in a lot faster time period. When in reality, if I just put a little bit of effort into it every single day, that consistency, that perseverance ultimately is what really pays off.
Yeah.
But man, that seems to be such a hard lesson for me to learn.
Yeah.
That's why I
Yeah.
love podcasting actually, because it has forced me to show up at least once a week, every week, and develop wonderful relationships with people and have fantastic conversations. And then when I look back over time, and now this is episode probably 56, 57, something like that in the course of the last 6 months, it's like, wow, actually, we've come a long way. We're doing something here.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. That's great. That's
That's
great.
awesome. Okay, Mark, I know that you live in Austin and I know that it's typically hotter, but if you had the choice, this is a super secret question that you weren't expecting,
Okay.
maybe. If you had the choice between consuming a hot bowl of soup, delicious, whatever flavor you want, or
All right.
gourmet marshmallows and hot chocolate, what would you choose?
Ooh, I'd go soup. Yeah.
Soup. What kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
soup?
Man, I'm a big French onion guy.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's tough to go wrong with that. A good bowl of French onion soup, even on a hot day. The funny thing is, to be honest with you, probably the coldest times inside in Austin are during the summer because the AC is
Oh,
cranking
the
so hard
AC.
everywhere. In fact,
Everybody's wearing parkas.
I have an office in my jacket here, and the team always teases me that I walk around in a jacket in the office half the time during the summer when it's 100 degrees outside.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love it. I'm going to send you and your family a care package, essentially, from a company called Spoonful of Comfort. They've become
Okay.
well loved among our podcast guests who end up choosing soup. And we gave
Nice.
it to our staff during the pandemic when we couldn't all get together. And it was just a way to kind of lift people's spirits. But I think you'll really enjoy it. So
That's
I'll
great. I
get
love it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll get you details after the episode for that one.
I'll make
Um,
sure I don't tell my daughter that hot chocolate was the other option.
just give me, Dad, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. It's
What
like, you
the
picked
heck?
poorly. What are you doing?
Choose wisely. Um, Mark, what's one final piece of advice or actionable step that you would give to our audience based on anything we talked about here today?
Yeah, I would just go back to the comment I made earlier about the digital journey that folks are,
I wrote that
contemplating,
down.
or that they haven't started to contemplate yet.
Yeah.
Look, in the world that we live in today, when we talked about the phone earlier, everything's at your fingertips,
Yep.
and usually, most of the things we buy as consumers are one click away from a
Yeah.
checkout process.
Yeah. And sometimes
Um,
next day shipping or same
yeah,
day.
right, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, you think about that in terms of the context of what your insureds expect in their personal life,
Yep.
and making sure that you've got the ability to deliver a similar digital journey for them as they interact with your company.
Yeah.
Because plenty of folks are out there considering it, or have signed up to do it, as evidenced by the 5,500 plus customers that we serve.
Mm.
And so just think about how payments plays a role in that, and how you can put yourself on a level playing field with, the Amazons of the world when it comes to the experience that your customers really have come to expect in today's economy.
Very wise advice indeed, sir. Appreciate that. Mark, where can people find you if they want to get more Mark in their lives?
Yeah, so try to keep my LinkedIn profile fairly up to date with all that's going on professionally. And then obviously ePayPolicy.com has got a ton of information about what we're doing as a business. So those are the two easiest places to keep up with me.
Awesome. I love it. And for folks listening to this or watching this, we do have a special link because ePay is a partner of the podcast. We do have a special link for you to visit to go learn more about ePay policy, the checkmate portion of it, anything you want to learn. So I'd encourage you to use that link especially. But Mark, thanks so much for being here today. This was a real treat, and I felt like I learned a lot. Uh, Even more than I knew about checkmate already, but specifically, I love this concept of the customer's digital journey. So appreciate you sharing all that today.
Yeah, you bet, Jim. Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Stick around for me, sir, but for everybody else, grow big or go home.